Thank you. Yeah, nothing like being, the person standing between you and your lunch, right? Anyway, hi everybody. My name is Jules. I'm a design advocate at Zero Height. It's been almost a year now. I'm working at Zero Height, and before joining Zero Height, I used to work as a consultancy designer, and I've been able to work with many different clients to help them build their design systems. And this is how I've been able to get all my design system experience, knowledge, and expertise by setting up, building, maintaining, and scaling different design systems for many different clients. And now I'm very happy to be able to share all this design system knowledge with the whole community to help designers, developers, and many more to build better design system. And I remember when I started to work on design system, one of my main goals and my big ambition when it comes to design system was to make things more consistency across all the projects. And I'm sure that if you are working on design system, it's probably one of your goals too, to bring more consistency to ensure that all the projects are going to look the same or deliver the same experience. And it makes sense. I mean, it's one of the goals of a design system. However, the more I was working on design system, and the more I was challenged with this design system, with this consistency concept. And for those who have been working on design system, I'm sure that you've also been challenged with this huge question that we hear a lot about design system. It's, are design system killing creativity? And I feel like it could be, a whole different talk about design system and creativity, but the short answer is no. I don't think design systems are killing creativity, and I feel like maybe it could be the opposite, because I don't think, there is any added value for a designer to build over and over again the same buttons with the same radius, icons, color, and padding. And I feel like design systems are here to help designers and set them free so they can, focus on more important things where they can bring much more value and help them to focus on. I think designers have so much more to bring to the design industry. And by setting them free, design system is a good way to help designers to focus on much more important things, such as creativity. Anyway, what I was saying, that the more I was working with design system, the less I was convinced that everything needed to be very consistent. And I was more and more convinced that maybe there's room for more flexibility and that you can have multiple products, different projects that all have very big differences with each other, and still having a solid system that they rely on. And my point is that you don't need to choose that your design system should be consistent or your design system should be flexible. It's more like finding the right balance and to understand that flexibility and consistency are two sides of the same coin for your design system and for your project. You see, on one side, having consistency is a great thing, because having consistency helps you to build confidence. It's easier to learn things when you know how things work and how to behave. And if you want to build confidence and consistency across your project, users need to know what to expect from each interaction. So consistency is a great thing. On the other hand, flexibility could be also very interesting for you, because flexibility is a great way to ensure that your design system is going to be adapted. If you let room for freedom and creativity with your design system, you ensure that people are more comfortable using your design system. Moreover, I feel like more flexibility is a great way to make exploration and iteration. If you want to make small, quick changes into your design system, having a flexible design system is great to operate these small changes. But the whole thing is finding the right balance. Because of course having too much flexibility could lead to a lack of consistency, and the same if you have too much consistency, it could also be a problem because of your design system adoption, or because you are not addressing the right needs to your specific product. So it's all about finding the right balance. So it's not just having a strict and a consistent design system or having a very flexible design system. It's all about finding this right balance. And to get to know about this balance between consistency and flexibility for your design system, you need to have a strong knowledge about your organization, your product, and how your users are working. So I feel like I've been talking a lot about design system, consistency, flexibility, and sometimes I think it's time to start talking about different things than design system, because I like using metaphors and other point of view to make my point. And I have several examples that I would like to share with you to explain how consistency and flexibility can work together without really talking about design system. And the first thing is about the brand, because in the end, I really think that design system, it's all about the brand. It's all about how to ensure that your brand is going to be well applied on your project and well implemented. And I really like the brand metaphor, because I think there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from the branding, especially about the branding architecture. You see, there are 4 main brand architecture that are interesting and that we could apply to the way we articulate our design systems too. The first one, it's a Google one. It's a branded house. It's probably the most common form of brand architecture. It's basically a master brand that has some sub-brands, and all the sub-brands are related directly to the master brand. And so, of course, Google is the master brand that you all know, and there are some sub-brands like Google Maps or Google Chrome that are directly related to the main brand. So we also have another one which is very close to the branded house, which is sub-brands. Here you will still have this concept of a master brand, but in this case the sub-brands can operate slightly differently. They still rely on the master brand, and they still have some look and feel and some values that they share with the master brand, but they are also allowed to have some specificities. Yeah, okay. And then we have the house of brand, which is in this case completely the opposite of the first one, because how the name says, it's a home for multiple brands. And so we have a master brand, but this master brand doesn't sell anything itself, but all its sub-brands are all independent from each other. Procter & Gamble is probably a good example, because it doesn't sell anything, but all its sub-brands have their own marketing and strategy, target audience, values, and they have no connection between the other brands. And finally, we have the endorsed brand, which is maybe more like an hybrid between the two first ones, the branded house and the sub-brands, because we still have this concept of a master brand and some sub-brands, but the sub-brands can operate very differently. The example with Coca-Cola is a good one, because we all know Coca-Cola as a master brand, and it can work by itself. But Coca-Cola also have some sub-brands that are related to this master brand, such as Diet Coke and Coke Zero. But Coca-Cola also owns other brands, such as Sprite, that is completely different from the Coca-Cola brand. So these 4 examples of brand architecture are really interesting, because I feel like it could work the same with design system, and I'm going to be more specific later. But I feel like maybe you need another example if the brand architecture is not specific enough. And so I feel like maybe we could talk about something completely different, and it's about cars. This one is also interesting because I feel like there's some connections we can do with, the design industry and all about the car and industrial world. You see, with this car analogy, it's really common for a manufacturer to create a variety of cars to cover a wide variety of use. You could because you probably have a lot of kids, so you would need an SUV to drop off the kids to the school, and maybe you just need a more classical car because you need to commute to work, or maybe because you are in your middle life crisis and you finally bought your sport coupe for your fun weekends. Anyway, each of these cars serve different purposes, and they all differ from their design and some functionalities or features or options. But still, all of these cars work together to keep the family together. And in the end, even if they differ from some specific changes, they also all share the same similarities, which could be like the grille shape or the body lines or maybe the door handles, things like that. And it's exactly how design system can also behave when you have multiple products. So this was for the car example. And I feel like I could do more analogy and more examples, but I feel like maybe it's time to be more concrete and share with you some more real example. So I have two examples I would like to share with you. One which is very consistent and very strict, and another one that is very flexible to see that to show that both can work together. The first one is Deliveroo. And I find it very, very interesting because Deliveroo has multiple products. The first one is probably the one you all know because it's the app or the website to order your food from your favorite restaurants. Then you also have a whole product for the restaurant so they can manage your food. You also have the app for the rider so they can deliver the food at your door. And Deliveroo also have a lot of internal tools to manage all the logistical stuff for your order. And what I find interesting with the Deliveroo example is that you can clearly see that there is a very consistent branding and experience across all these different products. And you can see that we recognize the same colors, the same fonts, the same shadows, the same shapes. I think it's even the same layout and navigation. And in my opinion, I think it makes sense for Deliveroo to have a very strict and consistent experience across their product, because from the moment you order your food, when the restaurant gets your order and when the rider is delivering your food at your door, it's all part of the same journey, it's all part of the same experience. And I feel like that Deliveroo wants to have this ambition to create a consistent experience for the whole journey. On the other hand, we have Uber, which is also interesting for different reasons. Once again, they have multiple products. You have Uber Ride when you want to order a cab. You have Uber Driver for the drivers. But you also have Uber Eats to order food and Uber Eats for restaurants so they can manage your orders. And here you can see that it's way more flexible and that you don't really have a strong and consistent experience. But it's okay. I mean, you can notice that there are some there are different colors, different illustrations, different navigation. Even if I feel like maybe between Uber Restaurants and Uber for Driver, there is some kind of logical with the colors, like they want to make a distinction. They want to distinguish what's behind and what's for the customer. But still, even if all these products are not all the same, you can still feel that you are in the Uber ecosystem, that you are that it's Uber across all the different products, and it's all because I think they kept some brands essential to the Uber brand, such as the font, the illustration, the sharp shapes, and maybe more details such as the icons or the shadows, things like that. And it's all about this when it comes to find the right balance between your consistency and flexibility. It's all about defining what's essential for your brand to stand out and what is maybe more flexible to give more freedom and creativity for your other product. So now, you are probably at this point of the talk overwhelmed with all these terms about consistency, flexibility, finding the right balance, etc. And I feel like maybe you're finally getting my point about finding this right balance. And I think now you are ready for the next step, which is, and I already hear you, asking how to define my flexibility for my design system. And I'm glad you're asking. And lucky you, I've been working on something to help you define your flexibility. And like a lot of things in design in general, when it comes to work on something, it's all about a workshop. And so there is a whole workshop that I would like to share with you to help you define your flexibility for your design system. But before getting into more detail about this workshop, a few words about how to set up this workshop, because it's important to have solid foundation for your workshop. The first thing is who you should invite for your workshop. It's basically everyone who is involved with your brand and your product. So basically, all the people who can make decisions and who are in charge of the brand. So probably product designer and also developers, but also people who work in the marketing or communication or social media department. It's not a quick workshop, I'm going to be honest, and I think that 4 hours is a great timing to conduct this workshop. Feel free maybe to split this workshop in different parts. There are 3 parts in this workshop, so maybe you could say that you will do the workshop in 3 times. But in any case, don't forget to add in a break at some point. And finally, and maybe it's the most important part before starting this workshop, it's important that you gather all of your product and your project, list all your product and your product, and gather all the visuals related to your brand and your projects. So if you have a website, a blog, or tools, get some screenshots of all these projects. And if you have some merchandising or business cards or flyers, it's really important to gather all of this. And finally, try to list all the patterns related to your brand. It could be about your logo, your fonts, your icons, everything that's related to your brand. It will be helpful. But as I'm very nice, here is a first list of patterns that usually cover anything that's helpful for a brand. Usually it's about logo, colors, fonts, icon, illustration. It could be more. You could add maybe, I don't know, site identity if you have some, or maybe motion guidelines, things like that. So once you have all this, you're ready, and we can go to the first step, which is about identify your brand's essentials. Basically, it's going to work with this template where you will need to display all of your projects that you will have prepared. So name the project, let's say it's a marketing website, and put all the screenshots from this project. So the screenshot from the marketing website so people can know and understand what it is about. And then everything is going to work on this voting zone. On the voting zone, we have all the patterns that you will have listed from your brand. This is how it looks like. And so you will ask your people at your workshop to vote on the patterns that are the most important for them on this project. So I like to ask people to vote with thumbs up and thumbs down to have a good understanding and overview about what's working well with your brand and what is missing for your brand on this project. So ask them to vote on every pattern, and you will start having a good overview about what are your brand's essential. You see that I've put some numbers on every pattern. It's just to count all the votes, and it will be helpful after. So basically, you do all this for every project, every product that you have. I also suggest having a comment zone so people can explain their choices and why they have voted on these patterns. And as I said, to count the vote, the thumbs up and the thumbs down, the final step of this stage is to rank all the patterns that have been voted. And it will be, a great first step for you to understand what are your brand's essential, and you can see that maybe what are the most important ones for your brand are the logos, the icon, and the illustration, and then the font, the colors, and everything. For the record, this is just an example. This is not for the brand's essential for the Rawhide. And once you're done, you can go to the next step, which is about understanding your brand's criteria. And we are going to play with 3 different criteria to understand, to better understand. The first one is about your target audience. You will need to define who is concerned by your brand, and try to understand who your brand is for. Do you have a public audience? Do you have some tools for your internal employees? Do you have some specific users? It's up to you to define who your brand will concern. Then you have the product criteria. I'm sure that across all the different products you have some very specific criteria that could be, for example, technologies, if you are running different products with web or iOS or Android technologies, or maybe because it's different use of your product, if it's internal tool or if it's marketing oriented, things like that. And finally, the brand degree, which is basically how much you think this project should be related to your brand. Should this project be very close to the brand, or on the contrary, very far? And we are going to play with this criteria, with this 3D matrix, to place the project on this matrix and define our criteria. To start, we are only going to play with the first criteria, so target and product criteria. And it's going to be in 2 main steps. The first one is placing the project on the target audience and product criteria. And it will be interesting, I think, for you, because it will be a good opportunity to see how is your project ecosystem. Maybe you will realize that you have a strong, you have a lot of product on the marketing criteria and maybe public audience oriented, and very few, for example, for internal or tools at your organization. Once you're done with placing the projects, we are going to focus on the last axis, which is a brand degree. So what you need to do is just to extend these projects along the brand degree axis to define if this project should be close to the brand or not. Once you're done with this, I really suggest using some colors to highlight which projects are close to the brand or not. Basically, use green if it's very close to the brand, and use red if it's very far. Once again, I think at this step, it will be interesting for you to realize that maybe there are some connections you can make between your product and target audience criteria and your brand degree. Maybe you will realize that the more you are marketing or public audience oriented, the more your project needs to be close to the brand. So, we are finally at the final step, but in fact, you've already done the hard work. And at this step, we are just going to gather everything you've done on the previous steps and make just some slight adjustments. You see that we are going to reuse everything that you have done. And it's all about what I like to call this family matrix. You are going to place the projects and the criteria on this matrix. So basically, it's a consistency degree. And the more you are close, the closer you are to the brand, the more chances your project will be in the twins or sibling projects. And the same, if you are far from the brand, it will be likely in neighbors or cousin projects. So the first step is just to place the project into each of these categories. But actually, you've already done it. If you remember, when you've been doing the brand degree axis and put some colors, you've already made some categories without knowing it. So it should be very quick and easy to place this project directly on the right categories. But once again, I mean, don't worry. You can adjust if you're not comfortable enough with these categories. You can adjust later. It's not an issue. Once you're done with that, you will need to define which patterns are essentials for each of these categories. And it's the same. You've already done it without knowing it, because when you have made the ranking of your patterns, it's a good way for you to understand which patterns are mandatory or should be flexible or not. Let's say, for example, that the twins project should all look the same. And so it's easy, everything is mandatory when you are a twin project. But when it comes to a sibling project, maybe let's have a look about our top 3 patterns, and it's logo, icons, and illustration. And so maybe we can define that a sibling project needs to follow the logo, the icons, illustration. It's very mandatory to ensure the brand consistency. And when it comes to colors or fonts, you can be more flexible. And it's up to you to define what flexible means for you. Maybe if we say that we have some flexibility with the colors, maybe it's you can use whatever color you want. Or maybe it's, we have other color palettes that you can reuse. Or maybe it's just switch the color logical, maybe use a secondary as your primary for your sibling projects. Yeah, infinity possibilities. And the same for the other category. Of course, you should have less mandatory options and more flexible or not mandatory patterns. And in the end, you need to define the criteria the criteria to know when your project belongs in which of this category. And once again, you've done it without at the second step, because when you were placing the projects on the matrix, you were already defining some criteria. So you should be able to say that when your product is marketing or tool oriented, or if it has a public audience target, it has big chances to be a twin project. And the same for a neighbor project. Like if it's a tool and if it's only for our employees, there are good chances that it will be a neighbor project. And like that, people will be able to know the patterns they'll need to use on the project to ensure your brand consistency. So when you're done with this final step, you can go further. And this is an example about what you could do about this workshop in the end. To help your teams and your project to know on which categories they belong. I like using some tree map decisions to help the team understand how they need to use the brand. And you will probably have a lot of questions during the workshop, so I strongly suggest reusing this question for this tree map. And it could be something like, who is your target audience? Is your project marketing oriented? Is it, I don't know, do your user need to be logged in to access the project? Things like that. And like this, they would just answer a few questions at the beginning of the project, and they will know that, oh, so I'm a sibling project, so they can just check and see, okay, I just need to use the logo, the icons, and the illustration to ensure that I am consistent with the brand. This is just an example, but it's up to you to make it your way. So it's great. Finding the right balance between consistency and flexibility, it's really important to ensure that your brand is well applied and implemented on your projects. But remember when I said that when it comes to design system, it's all about the brands? Of course, it's true, but I think actually there's more, and it's not just about the brand when it comes to finding the right balance between flexibility and consistency. I like to say that design systems are made by humans and for humans. And let's not forget that behind a design system, behind the tools, the process, and the methods, we talk a lot about this when it comes to design system. When you are working on design system, you realize that it's more about all these tools and process. It's mainly about humans, the people that are going to use your system. When it comes to finding the right balance between consistency and flexibility, of course, it's about the people and it's about the humans in the end. But in this case, it's especially about trust. Because when you make your design system flexible, you demonstrate your trust to your teams. And having, consistency and flexibility can go hand in hand, and you can have both. But the work isn't technical at this point, it's cultural. So, if you want to have a flexible design system, you need to let go of all the tools and the methods and the process and techniques and everything, and focus on what matters the most, and it's the people. And if you succeed as a result, it's a win-win situation because you will have a better and more consistent user experience across your product. You will have a better internal collaboration with your teams, a shared vision, team spirit, and it's all about the trust that you provide to your team thanks to your flexibility. If you're curious to know more about this talk, there's an article that we've written on our blog on Zero Height that relates all the different examples I shared with you. And if you are curious about the workshop that I've shared with you, there's also an article on our Learning Hub to explain how to conduct this workshop. There's even a FigJam template that you can reuse to apply this workshop directly with your teams. So feel free to have a look and share it with everyone. Thank you.